The chaotic scenario. Imagine inheriting a nation emotionally broken, economically exhausted, and spiritually extinguished. A people weary of invasions, fed up with humiliations, disciplined by disorder, and the deliberate absence of God's presence. It is in this environment that a young man of only 25, Hezekiah, assumes the throne after a reign that had reduced the sacred to silence, temple doors closed, lamps extinguished, incense interrupted, priesthood disorganized, collective memory shipwrecked. The external reputation is one of weakness. The internal morale is one of dejection. Enemies not only win, they mock. From every angle, the available narrative is one of failure as destiny. But Hezekiah introduces a powerful dissonance. The refusal to accept that the past determines the future. He doesn't fantasize about improvement, doesn't proclaim empty slogans, doesn't lean on convenient culprits. Instead, he faces reality with the sobriety of one who knows that the truth, however painful, is the only firm ground on which it is possible to rebuild. The starting point is not money, not the army, not diplomacy. It is lucidity. This is the inaugural gesture of any historical turning point, to name the place where one is with radical honesty. Crisis, when illuminated, reveals itself as pedagogical. It shows what has been abandoned, what has been inverted, what has been tolerated, what has been corrupted. Chaos is not merely a set of adverse circumstances. It is, above all, a diagnosis of misaligned priorities. And if disorder is the result of choices, the way out will not come by chance, it will come by decision. The kingdom under Ahaz foundered because it strayed from the source. Hezekiah begins to redirect history because he decides to return to the source. This chapter does not intend merely to paint a somber scenario, but to place one's own life before an honest mirror, where doors have been locked, where lights have been extinguished, where devotion has become hollow routine. When reality is admitted, hope ceases to be rhetoric and becomes fruit again. When the diagnosis is true, the treatment can be effective. Chaos, then, ceases to be a sentence and becomes context. And context, under leadership and purpose, can become the stage for miracles. Where are you, really? The first discipline of restoration is spiritual and practical realism, looking unfiltered at the current state of affairs. Hezekiah doesn't mask the situation or romanticize the past. He accurately reads the words that few dare to pronounce. We transgressed, we turned our backs, we closed the doors, we extinguished the lamps, we ceased what was due. This austere vocabulary is not a whip, it's a scalpel. It's only possible to heal what is named. It's only possible to reorganize life when one recognizes what is out of place. Likewise, you need to face, with the courage of one who loves the truth more than its image, the stark portrait of your critical areas, finances that demand discipline, relationships that demand reconciliation and boundaries, faith that demands revival, habits that demand replacement, routine that demands reordering. The fear of seeing reality is, at its core, the fear of relinquishing the comfort of illusion. But where illusion reigns, stagnation thrives. Clarity hurts at first, because it signals losses and triggers grief. But it quickly becomes liberating, because it returns to the heart the control that had been outsourced to circumstances. Ask yourself, how is my today? Not how was my yesterday, nor how do I dream of tomorrow? What concrete numbers define my financial health? What difficult conversations have I been postponing? What commitments to God have been replaced by haste, entertainment, or exhaustion? What people and content shape my affections daily? The truth does not shame, it illuminates. If the report card came back bad, it's not an insult, it's a direction. Study today, reorganize your schedule, ask for help, build a plan. If faith is cold, it's not condemnation, it's an invitation. Resume simple and solid disciplines. Rekindle the daily altar. Protect the first minutes of the day. Tune your ear to the word. And if the house is in conflict, it's not a definitive label, it's a red flag. Interrupt reactive patterns. Establish honest dialogue. seek wise counsel, make room for joint prayer. The question, "Where am I?" needs verifiable answers, not sophisticated excuses. It needs numbers, practices, schedules, names. When you face the present as it is, anxiety loses its monopoly on the future, and hope ceases to be just an emotion and becomes a strategy. What brought you here? After mapping the where, you need to uncover the why. Every situation has causes, and causes are composed of decisions, omissions, and repetitions. Hezekiah lists the causal chain without outsourcing. Closed doors equal interrupted devotion. Extinguished lamps equal dulled conscience. Ceased incense equals silent prayer. Turned backs equal displaced priority for the human gaze. Translate this to your life. When what should be central becomes peripheral. What is peripheral invades the center. Work invades the family. The screen invades the table. Haste invades the soul. The opinion of others invades identity. The consequence is not just tiredness, it is vulnerability. Without a foundation, any wind becomes a storm. Identifying causes requires humility, because it dismantles comfortable narratives. It is easier to blame a person, an era, a system. It is rarer to admit that we allow daily erosion, 10 fewer minutes of prayer, a postponed conversation, a pointless expense, a click that degrades us, a friendship that drags us down, a later that never comes. The causes are also structural. Poorly planned routines produce predictable results. The absence of healthy rituals opens space for impulses. The lack of faith communities and accountability fuels secrets, and secrets fuel prisons. There is also the spiritual dimension that Hezekiah brings back into the conversation. The problem is not primarily economic or military, it is theological. Life without God at the center disrupts all other gears. Recognizing this does not eliminate the need for soldiers, strategies, and resources. It only puts everything back on its proper axis. When you see the causal chain, you gain the power to cut it. You begin to seek the link that, if broken today, weakens the entire cycle tomorrow. Perhaps it's a consumer habit, a schedule that sabotages your sleep, a companion that corrupts your loyalty, content that fuels anxiety, a limiting belief repeated like a mantra. Name it, locate it, replace it. Identifying the cause is half the battle. The other half is deciding to do the opposite. The opposite step, how to exit. Exiting is rarely complex, it is almost always costly. The path is the disciplined opposite of entering. Hezekiah operates a simple and powerful reverse engineering. If the doors have closed, he opens them. If the lamps have gone out, he lights them. If the incense has ceased, he resumes it. If the priesthood has been scattered, he reintegrates it. If Passover has been forgotten, he celebrates it. In practical terms, this means rebuilding personal and collective liturgies that reorganize the imagination and the agenda. Sacred times, prepared environments, the right people, clear agreements, protected priorities. Put God back at the center, not as a slogan, but as a calendar. Define the first hour of the day as an altar. Word, prayer, silence, gratitude. Protect the table. Disinfect the mind from digital excesses. Replace fast dopamine habits with rhythms of depth. Reopen the doors of communion. Return to the congregation. Serve. Be under authority. Walk with those who lift you up. Light up your intellectual and emotional lamps. Consistent reading, journaling, seeking advice when needed. Physical exercise as stewardship of your body. Rekindle the incense. Not just urgent requests, but intercession, worship, and listening, because prayer reorders affections. And do this before buying expensive solutions or declaring external wars. When the spiritual axis returns to its place, the rest finds gravity. This doesn't exclude the practical. On the contrary, it enhances it. Create a simple financial plan, budget, cuts, prioritization. Establish verifiable weekly goals. Design study and work routines with focus blocks. Reactivate frank conversations at home. Impose healthy boundaries in relationships. Remember, Consistency beats intermittent intensity. 30 days of small acts of obedience produce more transformation than 3 days of euphoria. The opposite of the entrance, repeated daily, opens passages that seemed closed. And don't walk alone. Choose an Isaiah, someone mature, who prays with you, confronts with love, and points upwards. Reversing course isn't a spectacle, it's everyday loyalty. When resistance appears, authentic restoration calls for opposition. As Hezekiah restores worship, Sennacherib's threat intensifies, not only militarily, but psychologically. A letter that arrogantly recounts history, reduces past victories to statistics, ridicules trust in God, and recommends surrender as supposed prudence. This is the logic of the siege: to exhaust the spirit, push the soul into agreements with fear, persuade that perseverance is naivete. Many, at this point, interpret resistance as confirmation of error, when, in fact, it is a sign that you have touched the right nerve. The enemy is agitated when the foundation is shaken. Hezekiah does not debate with the letter, does not organize a panic committee, does not respond with propaganda. He calls Isaiah and prays. This is not spiritualistic escape. It is strategy at the highest level, because he decides to wage war where it is truly fought. Prayer transfigures geography. It places God back at the center of the narrative, reorganizes perceptions, shifts the focus from the size of the army to the faithfulness of the Lord. And God's response is of an elegance that humbles pride. An angel, not a pyrotechnic display, not disproportionate force, just enough to end the argument and rewrite the rumor among the nations. Inside, they already knew that God was present. Now outside, everyone recognizes that the administration has changed. In your life, resistance will come as a temptation to return to the old pattern, as sudden weariness, as voices that mock your new discipline, as unforeseen events that test your resolve. Respond without compromising the essential. Protect your altar, maintain your routine, nourish yourself with the word, surround yourself with people who pray, silence sources of noise, stay the course. Learn to discern. Not every urgency deserves your agenda. Not every voice deserves your ear. Not every attack deserves a response. Perseverance is faith with a calendar. When you walk through the siege without deviating, God's intervention will meet you on the way, and what was an affront will become a testimony. Remembering is moving forward. There's a secret that separates those who face giants from those who freeze before them: a properly guided memory. David faced Goliath remembering a lion and a bear, not as nostalgia, but as spiritual jurisprudence, previous cases that set a precedent for the present. The windshield is larger than the rearview mirror because life moves forward. But without the rearview mirror, you drive blindly regarding what you've already survived, the threats you've already left behind, the turns you've already taken without falling. The memory of God's works reconfigures the scale of fear and repositions confidence. When you remember in detail how you were supported after being fired, how you were comforted in loss, how you were protected after an accident, how you were surprised by improbable provisions, how you were led to key relationships, anxiety loses the right to define the size of the next obstacle. This remembrance is not romanticizing the past, it's ammunition for the present. It's not escape, it's foundation. Practice it as a discipline. Write down in a notebook God's interventions, the small and the large, the discreet deliverances and the spectacular turnarounds. Read it from time to time, especially when the rumors of the siege increase in volume. Tell someone, because repeated testimony strengthens convictions and creates a shared path of faith. Remembering is also an antidote to ingratitude and toxic comparison. When you focus on what God has already done for you, you reduce the temptation to desire someone else's story and increase your willingness to obey on your path. At the same time, memory needs to be selective. Don't feed memories that diminish you, that repeat narratives of victimhood, that accentuate defeats as identity. Do as Hezekiah did. Record where you failed so as not to repeat it. Acknowledge causes so as not to perpetuate them. But don't marry guilt. An alliance is made with God, not with the past. Between remembrance and hope, there is a bridge called gratitude. It transforms the "why me" in the phrase, "Thank you for still being here and for being able to start over." When gratitude enters, giants shrink, the soul slows down, and courage breathes again. So, when you hear the enemy's letter trying to rewrite your story saying, "You always lose, I always win," sit for a minute and count. How many lions have you faced? How many bears have fallen? Which was bigger, the problem or the hand that sustained you? Refresh your memory, rise serenely, and move forward. Not because the threat has disappeared, but because you have already learned that a God faithful in the past does not withdraw in the present. He does not change his mood, does not abandon covenants, does not break promises. The God who brought you this far is sufficient to carry you forward, and this conviction, nurtured daily, changes the way you walk, decide, and resist. The decision that changes destinies. Decisions define paths, and paths define destinies. Hezekiah doesn't propose a vague effort, a generic improvement, a "see what happens." He names the change at the deepest level. Let us make a covenant with the God of Israel. A covenant is more than an emotional promise. It's a pact that reorganizes priorities, delimits boundaries, defines loyalties, and creates rhythms. In practical terms, it's choosing who you will be when no one is watching, which commitments will not be negotiated, which habits sustain your identity, and which voices will have access to your heart. The first effect of a clear covenant is coherence. When what you believe aligns with what you do, the soul ceases to live in internal war, and the energy previously spent on rationalizations is freed to build. The second effect is constancy. With a covenant, you don't depend on emotion, you depend on commitment, and commitment continues even on days when you don't feel like it. The third effect is community. True alliances attract aligned people, filter companions, and create environments where fidelity is normal, not the exception. To formalize your alliance, write down, what does it mean in your schedule? What is the first time of day you dedicate to it? What are the weekly practices you will protect like a treasure? What are the digital and relational boundaries that will preserve your mind and heart? Who is your accountability partner, your Isaiah, to whom you will give permission to question, confront, pray, and encourage? Without clear pacts, you revert to the old pattern at the first sign of fatigue. With pacts, you weather storms without abandoning your course. The alliance also translates into generosity. When presence returns to the center, hands open, resources flow towards purpose, and the house is restructured, not out of obligation, but out of pleasure. Where the heart is, the treasure moves. And more, alliance is not perfection, it is direction. There will be stumbles, there will be cloudy days, there will be delays. What differentiates those who succeed from those who give up is not the absence of fools, but the decision to get up every time, dusting off the cobwebs and resuming the journey. Finally, proclaim your covenant. Speak to yourself, to God, and, when appropriate, to trusted people. Public words build inner pathways. Confessions generate healthy accountability. And when life tests your decision, and it will, you will not argue with the will of the moment. You will resort to your covenant, which has already decided what to do now. Destinies change in practice from one day to the next, but they begin at the exact point where you say, "I choose the Lord's path, come what may." One angel is enough. There are interventions by God that don't arrive with noise, but with precision. In Sennacherib's siege, the answer wasn't a spectacle of fire, but a surgical gesture. An angel. The sobriety of the miracle is a lesson in itself. First, because it demonstrates that God doesn't need to prove strength. He governs with quiet sovereignty. Second, because it teaches us not to confuse volume with effectiveness. Often, what delivers us is not what draws attention, but what solves the problem. When the prayer of Hezekiah and Isaiah ascends, God sends a solution that disarms the enemy, preserves the people, and establishes a new rumor among the nations. They are under new administration. the beauty lies in the contrast. Inside, the worship had already been restored, the lamps relit, Passover celebrated, generosity awakened. Outside, reality began to reflect what the heart already knew. This order matters. The miracle does not replace faithfulness. The miracle confirms the direction. Therefore, while you pray for intervention, keep the altar lit, the routine solid, the commitment alive. Don't fall into the trap of demanding signs before obeying. Obey, and you will see signs along the way. And when God acts, accept that it won't always come with a spotlight. Sometimes it will be an unexpected email, a reverse diagnosis, an unlikely proposal, a seemingly casual encounter, a door closing that frees you from a trap, a force that appears on the very day you are about to give up. Don't underestimate an angel. A single aligned action from heaven is enough to redraw the map of an entire season. The side effect of the miracle is also pedagogical. It redefines conversations. Those who previously mocked begin to respect. Those who previously threatened retreat. Those who previously kept their distance approach with gifts, recognition, and peace. The intervention is not just deliverance, it is also an announcement. It tells the world that your house has shifted its axis, and therefore its destiny has changed. Keep this in mind for the bad day. Your responsibility is to cultivate faithfulness. God's responsibility is to do what only He can do. And when the impossible bows down, do not steal the glory for yourself. Do not transform grace into merit. Return to the temple, give thanks, recount with humility, celebrate with reverence. Because the same hand that sends an angel is the hand that sustains the next step. And the best response to a miracle is to continue obeying as one who has understood the source. Direct application to your life. Translating the story into your routine means translating symbols into practices. Opening doors could mean reinstating a sacred time every morning, away from the phone, with an open Bible, intentional silence, and sincere prayer. Lighting lamps could mean taking care of your mental and physical health, sufficient sleep, regular exercise, a diet that sustains energy, reading that expands understanding, journaling that organizes emotions. Burning incense could mean a weekly prayer schedule for people, causes, and decisions with names and dates, making intercession a rhythm, not an impulse. Reintegrating priests could mean returning to serve in the community, submitting to trustworthy leadership, building spiritual friendships that lift you up when you falter and call you back when you stray. Celebrating Easter could mean establishing domestic memorials, a special monthly meal of gratitude, a victory chart, a time to tell stories of deliverance to children to solidify identity. In practical terms, write a 30-day plan with verifiable goals. Daily reading of 1 chapter, 3 focused prayers, a weekly meeting with your Isaiah, 2 blocks of focused study, a basic budget with immediate cuts, a scheduled difficult conversation, a decided and monitored screen time limit, and a practice of even modest generosity. At home, establish rules for dialogue. No shouting, no interruptions, a set time to discuss sensitive topics. Create rituals. Dinner at the table without cell phones, a short prayer before bed, a weekly intentional walk. Negotiate agreements and celebrate small advances. At work, practice quiet excellence. Deliver ahead of schedule. Communicate clearly. Be reliable in the invisible realm. In times of pressure, reduce noise. Pause profiles that fuel comparison. Limit news that only inflames anxiety. Disable notifications that hijack attention. And when fatigue arrives, because it will, treat it as a sign of maintenance, not defeat. Adjust your sleep. Simplify your schedule. Ask for help. The plan is simple, but it requires daily courage. Don't wait for the will to start. Start to regain the will. In parallel, prepare for resistance. Write standard responses to common temptations. Anticipate recurring pitfalls. Define what you will do in the first 24 hours after a stumble. This readiness prevents occasional falls from becoming the norm. At the end of each week, review what worked, what needs adjustment, where God surprised you. where you need to persevere. Application is not an isolated act. It is a living process, and living processes generate lasting results. Final call. We have reached the point where the story finds its clearest call. God can take you out of there, but the way out stems from a decision that no one can make for you. Hezekiah's message is an invitation to spiritual maturity and practical responsibility. From today onward, choose an alliance that organizes your agenda, an altar that ignites your conscience, and a community that sustains your constancy. Proclaim, with the serenity of one who has found direction, I will not live adrift in emotions. I will not be a hostage of the past. I will not surrender my identity to the noise of the moment. I will open doors I have closed, light lamps I have extinguished, reclaim the incense I have abandoned, and walk with those who point upwards. There will be threatening letters. There will be days of headwinds. There will be moments when the giant will shout louder. Even so, you will have the memory to remember the lions and bears, pacts to protect your heart, discipline to stay the course, and faith to wait for an angel at the right time. Don't negotiate with fear. Don't outsource your responsibility. Don't postpone what needs to be done today. Define 3 initial steps now and execute them within 24 hours. A sacred time tomorrow morning. B, a scheduled reconciliation or truth conversation. C, a noise-cutting moment to free your attention. Then, choose your Isaiah and send a message. I need to walk together. Finally, give thanks in advance for what God will do. Gratitude is the language of those who have already decided to live in the right direction. When you look back after a few weeks, you will realize that the chaos has become context. The context has become a stage, and the stage has received a story that is not about your strength, but about God's faithfulness and your daily obedience. The extraordinary life, after all, is not made of daily fireworks, but of small, repeated acts of courage and faithfulness. Decide today. Heaven knows your name, your home needs your yes, and your future will thank you for the step you take now. If God is for you, this path is already open. Walk it.